I wanted to become a rabbi at 16, which of course was an unusual dream for a teenager in the 1960s because there were no women rabbis at that time.
I decided that I would be a rabbi around my bar mitzvah time, and I found it fascinating.
Well, we actually met just before our first class at the rabbinical seminary that we were attending.
Yeah, we started the rabbinical seminary together in September of 1969, and we were engaged by February of 1970, and we were married that June. It has lasted for 54 years.
When we married, we had the ceremony at this congregation where I grew up in Philadelphia. And then the next day, our picture was on the front page of the Philadelphia newspaper because, as the rabbi who married us said, that ceremony was historic in Judaism. So we are the first married couple, rabbi couple, in world Jewish history.
Bear in mind that a woman rabbi had only been ordained in the Reform movement 2 years before, and a conservative woman rabbi would not be ordained until over a decade afterwards. Later, Sandy became the first rabbi to give birth to a child. We did face some interesting responses, and Sandy in her studies as a woman rabbi and following ordination faced actually some opposition.
As a couple, a married couple, there were no questions, but there were a lot of questions about a woman being a rabbi. I was fortunate in the seminary to be well accepted by the faculty and my fellow students, but in the general community, there was far less acceptance. Women started becoming rabbis when feminism as a whole began in the United States. At the time, feminism and Judaism weren't talking to each other. And part of what I had to do as a young rabbinical student was to find and to build a bridge between Judaism and feminism. You know, once that began to happen, then more and more women entered the study of the rabbinate.
Another consequence of the earlier firsts that became a first unto itself was our coming to Indianapolis in 1977 to serve Congregation Beth El Tzedek. We were the first rabbinical couple to jointly serve a congregation. For us, at least, part of the understanding of what it means to be a rabbi is an ambassador. Being a rabbi was never for me just a service to the Jewish community, but a service through the Jewish community to the broader human family of Indianapolis and of Indiana.
The health of your individual particular community depends on the health of the general community. And you have an obligation from your particular community to reach out and improve the quality of life of the general community. Having co-founded a group called Women for Change Indiana because I cared very deeply for what was happening to the status of women in our state. But that was a deep commitment of mine, as well as very interested in the civic life of the community and also the cultural life. As a writer of children's books, I really cared for what was happening in terms of the humanities and the arts in the city and continue to be involved in that.
As you know, we are living through times of increased anti-Semitism and inter-ethnic strife in different segments of the community, growing racial polarization, and looking back, the opportunities of building connections and building bridges with other communities, other religious, ethnic groups, which is a good in and of itself, has afforded us opportunities to reach out and extend the conversation. The tendency of many groups when things are not going well for them is to circle the wagons, to pull back. I think that is a wrong response. I think particularly at times like this, we need to reach out and to expand the circle rather than limit it. And we are pleased that we had the opportunity for over 4 decades to do that, and the fruits, the benefits are still yielding. It's not that we have Jewish history and Indiana history. Jewish history is part of the history of the state of Indiana.
In my opinion, you can't really move forward without knowing where you've been. But as we fight prejudice against Jews, we're also fighting prejudice and hatred against other peoples.
The Jewish attitude is that you always have to begin again, that you have to reach out again, never feel that the work is done, but that there is always more to be accomplished, more people to bring in, more opportunities to create. There's always room for improvement, always room for something else. The work goes on.